Welcome, innovative teachers. A great learning environment helps students learn and feel at ease. Well, today we are talking all about building connections with students and creating a safe and productive classroom. Also, if you're already loving our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. This helps spread the word to other innovative teachers who would love to connect to our community. Stay tuned for a great episode full of lots of useful information. We can't wait to learn and grow with you.
We're really excited about this episode, aren't we? And we've kind of been planning about this
Mhm.
one for a while. And now it's episode
Yes.
31, and here we are.
It's crazy to think it's 31. It doesn't feel like it's been 31, I don't think.
No, I noticed that we had to make a new folder because we chunk everything in groups of 10. So that was exciting.
And like we looked it up on we talked about this on the last episode though, I think. When did we say that we started? Was it June? We looked or something like that.
Yeah,
It
I
was
think
sometime in the summer,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
That's crazy to think about because like I feel like the summer feels like forever ago, but then our first episode doesn't feel like it's forever ago. Like it's really strange.
Yeah, I know. We've gotten in a great rhythm for this, and hopefully
Right.
you guys all out there are enjoying our journey as well because we're learning and you're learning.
Mhm.
So, this topic, we wanted to chat about how you can create a space that helps students feel safe, have a great connection with them, whether you are a classroom teacher or you're becoming a STEM teacher or tech teacher, but just how you can set up that environment so that students are feeling the best that they can be and really productive. But we know that building those relationships are super important no matter what kind of teacher you are. And that's probably the biggest reason why we love teaching so much is that relationship
Mhm.
piece.
Right. And I think like it's so hard to do if you're a STEM teacher. Right now I'm talking to specific STEM teachers because you only get them for 40 minutes a day. You don't get to have that full day. So like for me, it's always been hard because it's like I learned bits and pieces about kids from when they're kindergartners all the way to when they're sixth graders. Um, and I try to keep in the loop with their teachers if anything happens to them. Because more now than ever, kids are bringing a lot of baggage with them, and it's terrible and it stinks the things that have happened to them. But I feel like it's our job to like you said, build those connections and create a great safe experience for our students. So I'm excited to talk about the different things that kind of go along with it that we have found successful and things that we do that make our rooms maybe just a little bit more unique and different. So
Mhm. And these are things like if you're, it doesn't have to be a back to school like August type of thing. It can be a back of to break or after spring break, or if there's an idea you really like, you want to try in the middle of March, go for it. Like you always can improve building those relationships. And when I was a classroom teacher, I was a classroom teacher for 6 years before coming into this STEM role. And so it was honestly the building the connections piece was the hardest part for me, aside from the lesson planning and all of that, and planning multiple lessons. It was just so different. It just went by so fast. Like you said, like you only have this short little time with them and then they go back to their teacher. And so I was just so used to having my same kids all day and we could just keep going. And with those conversations or someone's in a bad mood, we can figure it out in a little bit, but it just goes by so much faster. And so I really had to grow in this area on how to build those connections. So, at the time of this podcast, this is my third year at the same school in the same position. And it's really cool how those relationships have been built over the years and knowing like those little cute kindergartners are now in second grade. And we talk about memories like, hey, remember when you ate the crayons? That was pretty cool. No. Him and I don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Um, but just like biggest thing, and I was like this too in the classroom, is having very clear expectations for the whole class and what their role is on how we can be successful from day one. So our thing too, we got new furniture that first year. So how we actually use the space, but then also how we can be successful, and they earn like a class point. We call them tiger paws, but how we can be successful as a whole. So As a whole, did we work together and try our best? Did we stay on task? And then there's two more. Were we respectful? Something like that. We can post it on the blog. But having
Right.
4 clear expectations, I go over at the beginning real quick. They're kind of like rules in a way, but just just more expectations. Like, this is how we act in this classroom. And then at the end, I ask them, we vote if we did all 4 things. And if we did all 4 things, we get a point. So being very clear, that's the same ones K through 5, but being very, very clear on those expectations. The kids know what to expect. Kids like routines. And of course, STEM changes like that. The lessons are going to change. They should. But your expectations, they should be very clear so they know what to expect in your room for that short amount of time. So it's not a big surprise and you're going to learn and get better at it. But that's been really helpful over the years so that we can get right to work. Also, when building those connections, I always try to find, of course, I'm like spoiled. I want them to like all be close with me, but you really have to think about it like the bigger picture. How can you give kids opportunities to collaborate with others and build their
Mhm.
classroom community? Because they are with each other all day. So when you're thinking about your lesson planning, think about the times of the year. And if you've never been a classroom teacher and you are specials, like you want to think about it like big picture. So for example, back to school. Typically, as a classroom teacher, you're working on building relationships as a class. They don't really know each other like brothers and sisters yet. So, really think about your lessons from the times of year and what they need most. Like, should you do probably more team building back to school? I would think so. Like, are the kids on computers a lot? Can you do more hands on types of activities? So, think about outside of your classroom walls, and the kids really respect you in that way because you're thinking about them. It's all about them. It really is.
Yeah.
But that's been really helpful as well, just shifting the lesson plans. And that helps the classroom teachers too, because they're working on that all the time.
And I think that like creates like a certain kind of classroom that the kids want to be a part of. Like you can tell when kids are miserable in a classroom. At least I think so.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, like there's just not a lot of community there.
Yeah.
Maybe the teachers and had experiencing some burnout, so they're like, giving up a little bit, which happens. I mean, it
Yeah.
happens. And so, I feel like those different things where students are collaborating, you're making it feel like it's something more than a classroom. It almost feels like a little family.
Yeah.
That's when the kids are like, "Ooh, like I want to be here. I want to do these things. I want to do this, this, and this."
Yeah. And it's cool because like we've talked about this also, that when in STEM we see different talents and kids shine in our classroom that might not always shine in the regular class. And so what's really cool is the kids can build that community with the skills they don't always see when it's reading and writing. So they can see
Mhm.
their classmates in a different way, which as a whole can really benefit them and see their talent. So that's just really cool, like having that special role if you are special specific. One thing I do. I'm all about taking pictures and fashion, a little bit of fashion. Want to work for a magazine? Did not happen, but hey. So I kept noticing the kids wear like really cool STEM shirts. So they have space on their shirt or fossils or cool little video game characters like, hey, check out your STEM style. So what I actually do is at the end of class, I'm all, who's got STEM style today? And I'll take their little pictures at the end, and I have one of those little old school digital picture frames that feed through the pictures. And they get so excited, and I save the pictures from every year. So they're like, hey, I know that kid, or that's me in kindergarten. It just randomly pops up. And the kids actually have been starting to wear STEM shirts to STEM, and they will plan
That is
it out. So when they know they have STEM, they'll wear a shirt for me so I can take their picture.
like you've told me this before, so like I knew about this, but I think the cool part about this is like, can you imagine like a kid going home and being like, "Hey, mom, I want a STEM T-shirt."
Hmm.
And like at first, it's like, oh, it's cute, it's cool, but at the same time, it's educational because then what do you think the mom's gonna say? What does STEM mean?
Yeah.
And then so they get to dive in, and because I've had parents before when I still remember when I started like the STEM program in my school, they had no idea what it was. They just assumed
Mhm.
it was like a computer class. So I think that's like a cool way like to build culture for sure and to build like that cool classroom environment because it's like something small, something you like, something the kids like, it makes me want to do it. I only have like 1 or 2 STEM shirts, so I need to get more.
Well, you'll start building them, and then when we go travel, my boyfriend and I like to travel a lot. I'm all, hey, can we go to the gift shop? We go to museums a lot. I don't know. We're super cool. But I'm like, can we go to the gift shop? I really want a STEM shirt. So,
He's like,
but
out of all shirts, that's what you want, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want. Come on now.
yeah, I want a STEM shirt. But it's been really cool. It's just fun, and the kids really like it. It's just a cute way to connect with them. But definitely when you're building those connections, the first year is going to be the hardest, but coming from the classroom to specials, I'm slowly figuring out the goal is for them to be independent as well. So how independent can I have them? So putting materials in a place they can grab themselves, labeling things a certain way that they can read the pictures, read the words, delegating classroom jobs. That could also be like having after school clubs. We talked about that too, but you can really build connections having after school clubs and see those kids more, just a little more relaxed and try out awesome things. But those can be opportunities to train kids. You could have a training club. Mine's called I Support, but you could train kids on how to do certain things in your classroom. So when they show up in your room that week, they can accomplish those tasks for you, like wrapping up headphones, plugging in the devices before they go. So you can really play on their strengths that way. But definitely thinking about that and just balancing that time on task and relationships is just so different. You get better at it and you really want to get to know the kids more. And that just really helps the whole learning experience, and you know what they can do and how to push them in different ways. So it's a bummer sometimes. I get sad. That's the one thing I miss about the classroom the most, is not having them all day and having all day to work on things. But I do like having them year after year and seeing them all the time. So
And
that's
then you
that's a
can
great.
grow too, which is like, yeah, there's positive and negatives to both, I feel like. And I mean, that's the hard part for me. Like you said, like you don't get to see them all day. Same time, I guess see them kind of grow into a like, a person from
Mhm.
like, when they're like just a little kindergartner that's lost in the hallways to fifth and sixth graders who are, becoming adults, which I think super cool. Like that's one of the cool parts about
Yeah,
it for sure, you know?
totally. Yeah, so it's a trade-off, but you can still build those connections. It's definitely possible to get a little more
Yeah.
creative if you're used to the regular
Mhm.
classroom, but it's fun. It's a fun challenge. It's one of the best challenges.
It is. And I like too, I was gonna say how you're like, you figure out that balance. Cause I feel like the first couple of years I was all like, like drill, like we gotta get this done, gotta get this done. And like now sometimes, like today my sixth graders were building and I was just like walking around just
Mhm.
talking to them about different things. And
Yeah.
if I'm like, if I would say before that I was nervous that like if administrative would see me, they'd be like, why aren't you doing this versus
Mhm.
this? And I'm like, this it's just too important to me. That's I got into it because of that. And
Yeah.
then the kids know I care about them, and then they come and tell me things they're excited about in the hallway,
Mhm.
and it just creates a new kind of culture, And like I love football. I've always loved football, and it's like one of my passions. And the kids know that, and I love Notre Dame football. So like
Oh,
one
you
thing, like a
you
lot of
shirt.
I know, right? And like my walls and everything, but we started doing like college pick'ems together. So we pick like
Oh,
games
cool.
together. And then we talk, on Monday they come like, oh, I picked this game right and you didn't. And
Oh.
it's just something that's kind of fun because, I get to make a connection with some kids that like what I like. But yeah, I think it's cool. And I think it's definitely worth the time. So if you're like a new teacher listening to this, which I've heard like a couple people tell me they're like brand new teachers or like they're going to be graduating soon. Like,
Oh,
don't,
that's cool.
yeah. So
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, so yeah, because like from time to time people will be like, "Hey, I listened," and
Aw,
I'm,
nice.
they're just kind of getting into it. Don't undervalue that time, I would say, and it's easy to, be that teacher that's like, I got to get everything done, and that's great, and we do got to get things done, but I feel like most importantly, we got to build relationships. Like that's number
Oh,
one.
yeah. I don't
Mhm.
get stuff done all the time.
Exactly.
I
That's sometimes I tell the kids, I'm like, we'll get it done a different day. That's just how it is. And that's life. Like today I woke up extremely tired and I told myself, I needed to get this, and this done. Well, I didn't get a couple things done. I said, you know what? It is what it is. There's tomorrow. I'm not going to sacrifice time with my family or relationships. So
yeah,
definitely important.
for sure.
All right. So I'm going to kind of talk about something that is just a little bit more of a shift as far as kind of what I do a lot in my room and what I've seen, especially like the last couple years, and I see a lot with older kids is like the failing forward culture in students. And you might even see this, Naomi, with like the older kids. It's like, they understand failing forward, but they become to a point where they're like, I suck, I'm bad at things. I
Yes.
mean, they're a little bit
Yes.
negative.
Yeah. Especially when they get older. You're so
Yeah.
right. Yes.
And I'm like, I don't like it, and I always say stuff to their teachers, and I'm like, what's going on? And I feel like no one ever has an answer for it.
Mhm.
Well, I do have an answer for it.
Oh, let's hear the
Sort of.
answer.
Yeah. So when my fifth and sixth graders like, I'm not very good, I'm bad, I always go, hey, you're beating up, let's pretend their name's Johnny. You're beating up Johnny, and I like Johnny. So now you got to stand in front of the whole class and say 3 things you love about yourself. That's kind of like that's kind of like a joke, but at the same time, then they're always like, well, why do you say that? And I'm like, because when you say those things about yourself, they become things that you subconsciously think. And I used to
Mhm.
be like this 100%. So I get it. Like I used to be like, I'm dumb. I'm not good at this, and this. Like I used to always tell myself that like out loud as like a joke, but then it became something in my head. So those negative thoughts I always tell kids become reality. So, just that culture of them, we want kids to fail forward, but taking that culture one step too far for the older kids and making it like, I am a failure. I'm not learning anything from it. I'm not getting any better. So I think creating that and letting them know by conversations, which is like my greatest, I think, technique when it comes to that stuff. Like I'm always
Totally.
like, I won't let kids talk like that. And I know
Good.
they have baggage and everything else, but I'm like, you don't need to talk about yourself like that. It's like one of those things. And then when something good happens, I go, see, I told you, you're smart, you're capable, and you're going to do awesome things. So I think being for them there personally, when things are hard and it's not easy for them when they're failing, you know, everyone needs that. Adults need that. Like I know times in
Definitely.
my life where like something went very poorly for me, and my wife was there, or my
Yep.
friends, or my parents. So it's like, we got to be that person for the kids when we're doing STEM projects, because it's the same concept. I know it sounds extreme, but for them, they're like, they want to do really well in STEM. They want to do well in
Yeah.
school. They want, their bridge to hold the most weight, and when it doesn't, they're going to be crushed. So it's like you got to think about how that's going to make them feel. So I personally have always just kind of related to that. And I'm like, I'm not going to let kids feel that way. When they mess up, I'm going to let them know it's okay. And,
Mhm.
we can learn from our mistakes, and then we try to make them better. And I don't know. That's how I kind of approach the older kids, I think.
Do you feel like, because I have seen this, but do you feel like over the years, as you've gotten to know kids, since you've had that culture in your room, like failing forward, it's okay to make mistakes, they're getting better at recognizing that? Have you seen like growth over the years,
Yeah,
like through like groups of kids?
I think, yeah, I would absolutely say 100%, because I think it's something that doesn't happen overnight. It does take time, but like, that's why, like, especially when, we're doing PDs with schools, or we're talking to teachers like we are now on a podcast, or administrator, whoever's listening to this, it's going to take time just like anything else does. But
Yeah.
if, this first grade teacher does it, and this second grade teacher does it, and it becomes expected in each grade band that, hey, we're going to fail at this school, but we're not going to consider it a failure if we move forward and we learn something from it, and we do something great because of it. All
Mhm.
great things that have happened because of failures. And I tell my kids that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
that's just exactly how it goes. And yeah, I think it's one of those things, like it's a cultural shock,
Yeah.
like, and it becomes like habits, like you said. And I know, like, there's always gonna be that kid that they're like, I can't do it. And then when they do, or they'll be like, you're gonna make me try it again, aren't you? And have a good attitude. I'm like, yeah. But then, someday they're gonna do that without even knowing, because I made them do it a
Yeah.
100 different times when they didn't want to do it. It's kind
Yeah.
of like when your coach makes you shoot 100 free throws, even though you want to shoot one. Well, then when the game comes down to it, you're probably going to make the free throw because you had to shoot 100 of them. So,
Well, and it's like you have that relationship, you have that room, they feel
mm-hmm.
safe in to make mistakes. It's all about like also your reaction too. Like if you like there's some teachers who get mad when kids mess
Mm-hmm.
up and get the
Right.
wrong answer and you see them completely shut down. So like you've created this space where they can fail forward and they're ready for that and they know you're not going to get mad at them. Like
Exactly. I mean,
they
that's
know that, and that's good.
yeah. And I think, I mean, you're exactly right. And I think those teachers are so worried because it's almost like a chain reaction. Like they're scared because they're
Mhm.
scared their principal is going to get mad at them, and
Yeah.
then that principal's scared that superintendent's going to get mad at them. That superintendent, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things. Like when do we start like realizing that everything in the world that has ever literally happened, everything that's been invented, all major companies, all people that have made a great deal of money and been successful have all failed like a lot. So it's like when are we gonna like say, hey, this is part of life. Like it's gonna happen. Like I tell the kids all the time, and like even like this kind of helps me transition. Like my younger kids, they don't really know about it yet. So sometimes for projects, like if we're doing like a sailboat, I'll create the world's worst sailboat 100% on purpose, obviously, because it's a first grade project. But they don't know that, and I'll be like, oh man, my sailboat was terrible. Like, and all the kids are like, oh, like pointing and laughing. I'm like, that's okay. Like I could probably learn. Like what do you think I could learn from this? And they're like, oh, you could try this, you could try this. So I kind
Aw.
of do what I would call like a not example, which are like my
Yeah.
favorite to do in sim because they're like change all this, and then by the end of the week I make one that's like pretty good or it's like slightly above average. I try not to like beat a bunch of first graders at a STEM project. That wouldn't make me look super cool. So I mean, I try to make one that like does pretty well, and then they're like, man, like yours was like one of the best, most improved ones. I'm like, yeah, and that's really what it's about, And so I think that really affects them because I usually do it at the beginning of the year. I should do it right after Christmas, like for projects I'm doing right now, but I didn't do it yet this year. I probably will here in a month just because it's something you can do always, and kids are like,
You totally
like
can.
at first, yeah. And I feel like when you do it too, like they always kind of look at you like, what? Like is Mr.
No,
Sharp like really
they're
bad at
used to it though, because if you do it in
Yeah,
writing, you show them like a bad. It's easy to critique others than yourself.
that is true. But I just feel like they're always like there's always that kid that's like looking at me though, like he's like, come on, like
It's
you know
the
what I mean? Because he knows you're doing it on purpose, but all the other kids are just acting like they're you know what I mean? Like they're the experts and they're gonna tell you exactly how to do it. But there's one kid's like, I'm not playing your games, old man. Like I get it. But
so
yeah, I think that's just part of like the STEM mindset is what I would say. And I mean the willingness to say, it happened. What can we change? What can we improve? And look more or less at like, and I talked about this with someone even the other day, and it might have even been when we were talking about like grades at one point because you don't do grades, right?
I don't formally know.
Yeah, and we were talking about like how like were we talking about this about like how we shouldn't do grades and it should be like student improvement. Maybe it wasn't me and you. I thought it was.
I
Maybe
think
not.
we've talked about
I'll
it,
say we talk about a
recorded
lot of things. So I
or
mean,
not.
we probably did at one point, but like I feel like that, especially like in STEM, but I think all grades should be that way. Should be about like, well, where did you start and where did you end? Because that journey from your failure or your first try to your second try, I think is what shows your growth and your learning. So that's what, I feel like when we were looking at that failing forward culture, that's what I want to see in students. That's what I want to see in a classroom. And that's what's going to make those students excited to come to my room, make them feel safe and productive.
Yeah,
So for
definitely.
sure.
Well, we think this episode is super important. If anything, maybe one of our most important episodes, just creating
Mhm.
that amazing environment for students. And we had so much fun coming up with this episode, and we're planning for you in mind for this upcoming year. So definitely let us know if there's something that if we should talk about. Would love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you have a teacher business, we are looking for partners. So please reach out to us. We are looking to give you an opportunity in our innovative teacher corner, and we want to highlight what you do and how you do it. So, for that opportunity or any other collaborations, whether it's an interview, marketing, or have us present at your school, send us an email at innovativeteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We already have some bookings starting in the spring, so definitely contact us so we can get you on our calendars. Also, if you're not ready yet for us to come to your school, you can definitely help us out by subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform to be updated on those new episodes and also spread the word to other teachers. Thank you so much for listening today, Innovative Teachers. We will see you in the next episode.